In 2016, researchers attached a tiny tracking device to an Arctic tern in Iceland. The device weighed less than a paperclip. The bird barely noticed it. And then they watched, for an entire year. What that tracker recorded left the research team sitting in silence. This bird, weighing less than a can of soda, flew from Iceland south along the coast of Africa, across the entire width of the Atlantic Ocean, down to Antarctica, across the Southern Ocean, back up through the Pacific, and home to Iceland in 1 year. 96,000 kilometers, nearly 60,000 miles, the longest animal migration ever recorded in human history. And it did this alone, not in a flock, not following a leader, alone. In complete silence above oceans that no human has ever crossed on foot, facing storms that sink ships, crossing darkness that lasts for months. And when it arrived back in Iceland, it landed in almost exactly the same spot it had left from 11 months earlier. The researchers couldn't speak. One of them later wrote in her field notes, "I have studied migration for 20 years. Nothing prepared me for this. Today, we are going inside the most extraordinary journey any creature on Earth makes. Not the fastest, not the strongest, but a bird that does something so relentless, so precise, so completely alone, that it forces you to completely redefine what survival means. By the end of this video, you will never complain about a long journey again." The Arctic tern makes a round-trip migration of between 70,000 and 96,000 kilometers every single year. That is roughly equivalent to flying around the entire circumference of the Earth twice every year. For a bird that lives for up to 30 years, this means a lifetime migration distance of approximately 2.4 million kilometers. That is the equivalent of 3 round trips to the moon, completed entirely on wings, by a bird that weighs about 100 grams, less than a can of soda. But the distance alone does not capture what makes this journey so extraordinary. It is the route. The Arctic tern does not take a straight path. It cannot. There is no straight path across a planet covered in oceans and weather systems. Instead, it follows something that researchers spent years trying to understand. A route so precisely optimized that when scientists finally mapped it fully, aerospace engineers asked to see the data. Because the Arctic tern doesn't just fly south, it finds the wind. Researchers tracking multiple Arctic terns discovered that these birds follow global wind patterns with such precision that they consistently fly routes that minimize energy expenditure while maximizing distance covered. Not by instinct alone, but by reading the atmosphere in real time, adjusting, responding, finding pathways through the wind that no human navigator had fully mapped until satellites gave us the tools to see what the terns had always known. The Arctic tern breeds in the Arctic during the northern summer, when the northern hemisphere is tilted toward the sun, maximum daylight, maximum food, maximum life, and then it flies south, all the way to Antarctica, where it arrives just in time for the southern hemisphere summer. Maximum daylight again, maximum food again, maximum life again. Think about what that means. The Arctic tern follows summer around the entire planet every year. It experiences more daylight than any other creature on Earth. Some years it sees almost no darkness at all, living in permanent or near permanent summer from one pole to the other year after year after year. Scientists studying this realize something extraordinary. The Arctic tern does not simply migrate to survive. It migrates to thrive, to find the best conditions on Earth, in both hemispheres, simultaneously chasing the sun across a planet. No other creature does this. Not whales, not wildebeest, not any other migratory bird. Only the Arctic tern makes the full pole-to-pole journey. Only the Arctic tern sees both polar summers. And it has been doing this for millions of years. Long before humans knew the Earth was round. Long before we knew there were 2 poles. The Arctic tern knew. It simply flew. But the route is not always beautiful, and the journey is not always peaceful, because between the Arctic and Antarctica lies some of the most violent ocean on Earth, the Southern Ocean, surrounding Antarctica, with no land to break the wind. for 360 degrees around the planet, the longest stretch of open water anywhere on Earth, where waves regularly reach 15 meters, where winds sustain at over 100 kilometers per hour for weeks at a time, where ships have sunk and sailors have died, and the Arctic Tern flies straight through it. Researchers tracking terns through the Southern Ocean documented something that initially confused them. Instead of flying around the worst storms, many terns flew directly into the strongest wind zones, not avoiding the violence, using it, the same strategy we saw in eagles, but taken to an extreme that makes the eagle's hurricane look gentle. The tern's body is built for exactly this: narrow pointed wings that slice through wind rather than fighting it. A lightweight frame that responds to air currents with extraordinary sensitivity. The ability to read shifting wind patterns and position itself to extract maximum speed from the moving air. In the Southern Ocean, a tern riding the right wind system can cover ground at speeds that would be impossible in calm air. The storm that would terrify a human sailor is a free ride for the Arctic Tern, a shortcut, an advantage, and it knows how to use it every single year. Now here is the question that has fascinated researchers for decades. How does a bird weighing 100 grams navigate 60,000 miles across open oceans through storm systems in darkness and arrive home within meters of where it left, without GPS, without maps, without anyone showing it the way? The answer involves systems so sophisticated that scientists are still arguing about which ones the tern uses and in what combination. The first system is magnetic. The Earth has a magnetic field, and Arctic terns, like many migratory birds, have structures in their bodies that appear to allow them to sense this field, essentially feeling the direction and intensity of the Earth's magnetism the way we feel the pull of gravity. This gives them a global compass, not pointing simply north or south, but giving positional information, allowing the bird to know not just which direction it is going, but approximately where on the planet it currently is. The second system is celestial. Arctic terns navigate by the sun during the day, by stars at night, using the position of celestial bodies to maintain their heading across featureless oceans. The third system is the one that surprises people most: memory. Arctic terns remember their migration routes with extraordinary precision. Researchers have documented individual birds returning to nest in the exact same location year after year, not approximately, the same square meter of ground. After a journey of 60,000 miles, after 11 months away, the same square meter. If this is redefining what you thought was possible, hit like right now so more people can discover this incredible story. But there is one more part of this story, one that goes beyond biology, beyond navigation, beyond endurance. The Arctic Tern that left Iceland in 2016 with that tiny tracker was not a young bird making its first journey. Researchers estimated it was at least 12 years old, which means it had already completed this journey at least 10 times before, more than 600,000 kilometers of migration already behind it, and it set out again, alone, as if the journey itself was simply what life was, not an achievement, not a challenge, just what it did. Scientists who study Arctic terns often describe something similar when watching them depart each autumn. There is no visible hesitation, no circling, no looking back. The bird simply orients itself and goes into 60,000 miles of ocean, storm, darkness, and impossibility, with nothing but the knowledge already inside it, and the certainty that it will arrive. Researchers have asked what drives this. What keeps a 100-gram bird moving through southern ocean storms when everything physical is against it? And the honest answer is that we do not fully know. We know the mechanics, we know the navigation systems, we know the energy efficiency, but why a bird that could survive in one place chooses to make this journey every year without fail is still something that science can describe, but not fully explain. Perhaps that is the most honest thing we can say about the Arctic Tern. We can measure what it does. We cannot fully explain why it does it. 100 grams, 60,000 miles, every year, alone, through storms that sink ships, across oceans that swallow continents, to the bottom of the earth, and back, without GPS, without maps, without a single other creature showing it the way. Only the knowledge inside its own body, and the certainty built across millions of years that the journey is worth making. We do not fully understand what drives it. We cannot fully replicate what it does. We can only watch and measure and sit in something close to silence when the data comes back and the numbers are what they are. 60,000 miles, one bird, every year. Perhaps the most important thing the Arctic Tern has to teach us is not how far it travels, but that it goes, without hesitation, without looking back, into the open ocean every single time. If this journey moves something in you, subscribe to Birdhearts so you never miss another incredible bird survival story. And tell me in the comments, could you leave everything behind and fly 60,000 miles alone? I'll see you in the next one.